Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Resource, a podcast for insights, strategies, and stories from the world of materials management, recycling, and the circular economy. Each episode features conversations with industry leaders, innovators, and policymakers who are transforming the way we use, recover, redesign, and rethink resources. From breakthrough technologies to successful programs and practical tips, we'll explore how materials move, how systems evolve, and how a circular approach can drive both environmental, economic, and operational impact. I'm Stefanie Valentic, and I'm a reporter with Resource Recycling. Today, I'm here with Greenchip's Chris Kaasmann and Jeff Gloyd of Gloyd Recycling Solutions to talk about eScrap Conference 2025 and upcoming trends in the industry for 2026. How are you doing both today?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for welcoming us.
Yeah, and this was my first experience at eScrap this year, and it was just a whole whirlwind throughout the few days that we had. It was, we were at the Gaylord Texan. There were a lot of events going on, a lot of people. It was very condensed, but the space was very big. So what did you guys think of it this year?
I'll jump in. I thought the conference was really well done this year. I mean, eScrap every year is the conference that everybody looks forward to. I've been going now for years and years, and I thought this year's conference was really well done. The venue was great. Greenchip had a good time. We always like to have a little bit of fun. We hosted a pickleball tournament, and that was great to get people out of their comfort zone. So I had a great time at it.
Yeah, I was able to sit on a panel talking about innovative technologies, and to start that panel, Stephanie, I said, "Hey, this is my 13th straight eScrap. Who's been in here to more than that?" And one person raised their hand. So now I'm the old guy at eScrap. But as far as compared to previous, I always think, and I've said this before, that the eScrap conference is really the quintessential gathering spot for the year for this industry. There's other organizations, there's other groups, they're just fine too. But if you want to meet and greet the colleagues and friends in this industry, eScrap's where to be.
Yeah, Jeff, you bring up a good point. I did notice that there were a lot of folks that had been there, either it was their first time or maybe second or third. So it's cool to see the industry growing. See a lot of new companies, different tech companies, software, different technologies out there. So it's really the place to be. To get the word out about your company and learn and see what's going on.
Exhibit hall activities. I thought the exhibitors, from what I've talked to, obviously you guys Resource Recycling have all the data, but the amount of time spent in the exhibit hall, I think, was positive. And then having the session very nearby, a lot of forward-thinking presentations and topics as well.
It was, as I said, my first time there, but it was really interesting to see how everybody comes together. Everybody's across the country, different parts of the U.S., but everybody is able to meet in person and really work through what they're seeing in their own little, world at different parts of the year and come together, discuss, share their knowledge, share an innovation that they found or a new product or company that they discovered. And it's just that exchange of ideas and being in person that just what makes that conference so great.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So as you said, Jeff, you were in a session on a panel. Chris, you were as well. What were the main topics that you heard from different attendees or from being on that session? Hot topics that are, issues, challenges that are being discussed in the eScrap industry through 2025. Jeff, if you'd like to start.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just so happens that question fits well into, what I was able to speak on. Hard to manage items and what's happening in the industry. So I was on a panel with couple of gentlemen, colleagues, one speaking about plastics recycling and one speaking about solar panel recycling. Of course, I was talking about processing and recycling devices with embedded batteries and some technology that we're adding to the market. And there's no shortage of what's next in this industry. There's always some challenge. There's always some hazard. There's always some risk, a new type of equipment, a new product that we as recyclers have to deal with. So I think it's important to be thinking about that next level of process, that next level of collection, transportation, sorting, and recycling. I think that's one of the things I like about the conferences. We do hear about that. Of course, the talk of the town. I'm probably jumping ahead, Stefanie. I'm sure it's on your list with the broker shame report coming out of e-Stewards. Aside from topics and meeting and greeting at the exhibit booths, that's all that was being discussed.
Yeah, just wanted to jump in on there, and Jeff, I think what you spoke about is timely. I think as time goes on, we've seen the form factor with electronics get smaller and smaller and smaller, and with that comes some challenges. Certainly, more products have embedded batteries. Consumers want products that are waterproof and can do more things and last longer. So I think the challenge of how to manage smaller form factor devices, the question of what is e-waste seems to, the scope of e-waste seems to keep growing and growing and growing with the Internet of Things and all sorts of devices that have batteries. So I think that's going to be not only a topic this year, but as we continue this journey in managing end-of-life devices.
All of that and the pickleball tournament, which I think was the greatest offset event that I've been to, and not just e-Scrap, but many conferences.
Pickleball was fun, man.
Let's go ahead and take a break and learn more about Greenchip. Chris, if you'd like to tell us a little bit more about Greenchip does, the floor is yours.
Sure, thanks a lot. So Greenchip was founded over a decade ago in New York City. We manage the full life cycle of electronic devices. So we have a robust IT asset disposition operation in New York. And then in Virginia, we have our state-of-the-art shredding operation where we're handling all end-of-life electronics, everything from printers, servers, PCs, hard to manage devices that might be big and bulky that most shredders don't want. We want them. In addition to that, we're still one of the few out there managing CRT devices, and we are happy to do so. We keep our operations lean and pride ourselves on building relationships and maintaining those relationships.
Jeff, thank you again for joining us today. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Gloyd Recycling Solutions?
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here with you, Stefanie, and of course, my good friend Chris here on the call as well. Gloyd Recycling Solutions, environmental services consulting company. We've been in the e-Scrap and other waste and recycling industries for a long time. We'll say over 2 decades and kind of leave it at that. So we're providing engineering support for building equipment and facilities, sales and operational optimization. So how do we make that equipment and those facilities more efficient and more immediately profitable, if you will. And then, as I mentioned, and many in the industry know, we've designed a fairly unique shredding process to be able to manage batteries embedded devices that we call the BID system. And that's consuming a lot of our time with a lot of interested clients and conversations right now.
Jeff, you mentioned the Brokers of Shame report. Let's talk a little bit about that report, what reports like that mean on the impact to the industry, and also talk about certification, pros and cons. Chris, if you'd like to start, I know you were on the panel for the Brokers of Shame. Can you summarize what this report was about and its impact to the industry so far?
Sure. Brokers of Shame highlighted, was put out by e-Stewards, or really Basel Action Network, highlighting some information related to the shipment of whole unit electronic devices to primarily Malaysia and other developing parts of the world. it's never, in my opinion, it's never a good thing for the industry, for recycling, when these types of reports come out. Generally speaking, people, industry, consumers, municipalities, government, what have you, always question whether recycling is real and whether it actually takes place. So anytime there's a piece of information that comes out that throws that into question, I think it hurts everybody. And I think, especially when it comes to our industry, we need to double down on working together. If we want to solve this particular issue, need to have the standards working together, need to have recyclers having good conversation, transparent conversation with one another. Auditors need more education. I mean, it's easy to point the finger everywhere, but it kind of sort of is, we need to take an all-in approach, look at every single sector and figure out how we can improve things so that these types of things don't happen again.
Yeah, let me just add to that you know, the certifications, and there's the two major ones, of course, R2V3 and e-Stewards are really intended, I think, to level the playing field, right? So that companies that pay for and spend the time to meet the certification standards, you know, all have an understanding that we're doing the right thing throughout the entire process. The reality, what we saw from this report, and I think if you spend any time in this industry, is that that's just certainly not happening, and that the certification bodies themselves are really struggling to show the value that they're providing to certified companies. And that's a real challenge. It's a challenge for the industry. It's a challenge for those certification bodies. It's a challenge for the auditors that help, you know, move those certifications forward. But I'll switch to a positive, and that's that I think both of the certification you know, entities recognize the challenge, and they're trying to address it and make improvements. I'll share that, you know, both Chris and I, last week, we sit on the leadership council for the e-Stewards certification. My first year attending a meeting, Chris has been there a few years now, and engaged even before that in a previous career. And it's all that's being talked about is how do we improve the certification? How do we make sure that companies that are certified are compliant? And how do we get back to that trust and that level playing field, which is, you know, really, as I mentioned, what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, Jeff, just to add to that, briefly, you're right. And I think if you look back over time, R2 and e-Stewards at certain points were at odds with one another. Certainly e-Stewards was, you know, doing its thing. And I think both standards have benefited from the other becoming more rigorous, or, you know, improving or doing a new revision. And we've gotten to a point where not only have the standards raised the bar for the entire industry, but now they're actually communicating and working together and trying to do these things together. Whereas in the past, that might not be the case. So I think that's, you know, taking that positive of yeah, hey, they're communicating together, that we need to continue to do that.
And I think that, you know, that'll just aid well. You know, there's a lot of broken trust, you know, also on the consumer level about how well recycling is really working. And in respect to that, there's a lot of EPR policy. There's a lot of changes coming down the pipeline when it comes to e-scrap laws and recycling laws and legislation that are going to require consumers to kind of take on a certain level of education to learn what can and can't be recycled, where things need to be dropped off, all these things. And meanwhile, the industry has a responsibility that, you know, they need to pass down this and communicate this. So with reports like brokers of shame and that, you know, misplaced trust, what do you think needs to happen to not only promote the value of the certifications, but also educate the consumer that this is an industry that is working, this is an industry that is progressing, it's not a myth?
Well, that's if we had the golden egg here, we wouldn't be struggling with reports like brokers of shame, right? I do think, Stephanie, that there's no simple answer, and Chris and I can give you our thoughts and opinions. We certainly discussed that last week. I know the folks at R2 are discussing the same thing. There's incremental changes that can happen. Putting more trackers and monitoring compliance seems like an easy way of doing it, although there's complications there. It's costly. How do you get material into folks who don't have public drop-off sites? How do you get into B2B type material when you've got confidentiality and data management concerns? So there's only so much that can be done, specifically related to the trackers and broker shame. There needs to be other things to help bring that trust up, and that's on the auditing side. That's in the design of the certifications themselves. I think it's a complicated question. It's going to take some time for the organizations to figure out.
Yeah, there's definitely not. You can't put your finger on one hole and expect all the leaks to stop. I think if I could just point at one of those, and that's the audit process. If you look at the auditors that are out there and those entities that are working with them, these folks are primarily, at least from my experience, focused on environmental health and safety, and maybe not necessarily as educated on the nuances of electronics recycling and downstream due diligence. And so a lot of the issues that we're seeing, and certainly with brokers of shame, they're not environmental health and safety issues. It's not about somebody not wearing their PPE in a facility or the fire extinguisher that wasn't inspected. It's about downstream management, right? So I think as we think about how to potentially fix or bring that level playing field, we need to look at more controls as it relates to downstream due diligence.
Going on to our next topic here, I did briefly bring it up before, was EPR and policy. We have all this action going on, legislation that's coming up a lot of. So I know, Chris, you have a lot to say about EPR and policy. What do you think? How do you think that's impacted e-scrap in 2025, and where do you see it going in 2026?
Yeah, I mean, so we have 25 states plus Washington, D.C. that have extended producer responsibility, product stewardship laws. Those states have the list of states that have had legislation has not grown in years. And when you look back at what these laws were set up for, they were set up primarily to handle hard to recycle or costly devices, primarily displays, TVs, monitors. And so as CRTs are working their way out of the waste stream, I think we need to look towards what the next challenge is. And I think Jeff hinted at it earlier, battery embedded devices, I think is one thing. I'm not sure we add them to the existing laws. They might, be better suited for their own thing. But I think, when we look at these aging EPR laws, one thing that I would like to see is a move away from targets and weight-based collections, and focus on convenience, giving all consumers in a particular state or jurisdiction access to free recycling. And there's been some successful, well, depending on who you ask, successful iterations of that in places like Illinois and South Carolina. But I think as time goes on, you'll see more, at least hopefully see more convenience-based state programs.
Yeah, when it comes to state laws, EPR laws, one thing that I'd like to see is an expansion. Chris mentioned it's been the same 26 states in District of Columbia for a very long time, and unless I'm wrong, it's really the same thing when it comes to these new laws being discussed for batteries or battery embedded devices or solar panels. It's the early adopter states of California, Washington, Oregon, Maine, Minnesota, Vermont, and then maybe 5 or 6 or 8 that kind of fall in after that. But that leaves half the country, maybe not half the population, but certainly half the states that don't have any legislation regarding this, or electronics, or batteries, or solar panels, or other hard to manage items. And I think that just needs to change. I don't have the solution to how that changes, but we don't really have a national solution if half half the states don't participate. I think there's some equity in pricing that has to be discussed as well. And in that, in some states, the EPR is covering a very small portion of what it actually costs to collect, transport, and recycle material. And in other states, it might be the EPR is maybe overcharging and developing slush funds, which nobody wants to see at a government level either. So there has to be a better mix of how these programs are funded. And to Chris's point, we've been such a weight-based industry, but the cost of managing an earbud or a remote control, which weigh almost nothing, or a mouse that has an embedded battery is far greater. I mean, we're talking 20, 50, 100 times greater than managing a printer or managing a kid's toy with a single alkaline battery or something. So how do we address those inequities in the processing side to make sure that when this material is collected, that the processors aren't struggling to make a margin in recycling properly?
Yeah, Jeff, I'd be interested in your thoughts on, if we move forward with EPR, thinking about battery embedded devices, my gut thought is to almost treat them as safety laws. Batteries have been causing fires in MRFs and trash trucks and electronics recycling facilities. I think we'd have more success kind of sort of carving it out as environmental safety legislation than potentially EPR that seeks to collect a certain amount or whatever you want to call it over the course of time.
Yeah, I mean, call it what you want, right? I just don't think it fits completely into the economics of all of the current EPR laws.
Yeah, agreed.
If a typical rate that an OEM is paying in a state to manage their electronics component is 15 cents a pound, let's say. Well, that doesn't come close to covering the cost of managing earbuds or remote controls. Just the time it takes to touch and manually sort these things. Then you get things that aren't supposed to be open, like waste phones. The cost of managing that is never going to be covered by something as minimal as 15 cents. So to your point, it needs to be a different system, a different tracking system, a different funding system, and likely grouped by essentially the difficulty in managing the product versus just its weight.
100%.
Jeff, you mentioned before, everybody basically has to be on the same page at some point to allow, a national expansion of laws that would support e-scrap. You see, in terms of harmonization, that being a possibility, or do you see harmonization not being the best approach because each state is different in their collection systems and the way they handle it?
Yeah, I think honestly, Stefanie, it'd be naive to think that there's going to be kind of a single source solution that all 50 states would sign on to. That's quite literally not going to happen. There's too much resistance from the manufacturer side, too much resistance from some state legislatures, and for whatever reason, they just don't seem to want to work together and play nice in most cases. I think it doesn't detract from the fact that should be the ultimate goal, right? There are solutions that are better than others. A simple way to look at it is, in most businesses, follow the money, right? If it's worth enough money, companies will do the right thing on the recycling side. If it's not, you get cheating or you don't get solutions. So, we just have to find some consensus as to what's fair, so that the material can be collected and properly recycled, and as much domestic as possible, and then see where the legislatures and where the OEMs fall in the conversation.
Jeff, you probably have some thoughts and insights on commodity metal pricing. What's it look like over the past year? What's it looking like into 2026?
Yeah, I'd say that I'm bullish on commodity values. Aluminum, I think, is going to stay close to $2 a pound. I mean, gold is crazy, 4,100 an ounce. Copper over $5 a pound. This is really unheard of in the 10, 15 years I've been doing this specific industry. And I don't expect that to really change too much, to be honest, which should be great news for the industry. I don't know how Chris and his team at Greenchip think about it, but the value of boards is obviously up. The value of whole components should be up. But we have to couch that with the challenges. Moving plastic is nearly impossible. And where it used to be a profit center, and keep in mind 40% of most e-waste is plastic, is now a cost center, completely flipped. So how does that factor in for items that are high plastic, low forward value? We're not really seeing the upside from the gold and copper market. I will say this, generally speaking, though, that I've had the privilege of running some of the largest end-of-life e-scrap recycling operations in North America, and there was profit to be made at when gold was $1,900 an ounce, and when copper was at $1.70 a pound. So if companies are struggling to make money with the commodity market where it is now, they might need to look internally to their operations versus the commodity markets themselves.
Yeah, Jeff, you took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, certainly we're happy about where pricing is going on metals and circuit boards and whatnot, but that's also not without challenges. It's a lot of time, manpower, operations to run shred operations and process things at end of life. There's fewer and fewer people doing it, fewer and fewer companies that want to get their hands into that kind of thing. And then, the onus is on us to manage plastics the right way. And I think that, that's the challenge. But to your point, right? I mean, if there's a level playing field, which we talked about earlier, then those who are running tight ships and are good at processing should be able to make money.
Yeah, and you're right. After 2020, I think we saw labor rates go from, in most areas, $12, $13 an hour to $20. I think they're likely higher than that now in most areas, even non-big city areas, and that definitely has an impact. Which may not be fully offset by strong commodities, and of course the quantity of material that is being packaged and exported has a negative impact on the market as well. And then just generally speaking, the competition. You're absolutely right. The consolidation industry has been pretty rampant the last 5 years. End-of-life guys buying ITAG guys buying other ITAG guys. That should help everyone from a value and processing standpoint. I don't know if that's actually come to fruition. So we'll see as the market moves forward the next year, Stefanie. I'm not sure if this consolidation model and folks doing joint ventures and acquisitions is going to create more competition, which could drive pricing down, or if it'll improve pricing for those who are doing the right thing.
We're, getting to the end of our time here. We have so much to talk about. We could probably talk, for days about everything that we've discussed, just, on basic policy, what's going to happen. So, Jeff, what is e-scrap looking like for 2026? What key areas do you see being discussed in the near future here?
Yeah, I'm excited for 2026. One thing I always have said about this country is we like to buy stuff and we like to throw stuff away. Right? And it just so happens that a big portion of what that stuff is now contains a battery or has a cord. Right, so it's in electronics. I also am fairly excited about the focus on critical minerals, precious metal recovery. There's a lot of investment domestically in recovering critical minerals, keeping them on our soil. Same thing with precious metals. Going away from just primary smelts is the only option for managing that. So the investment, consolidation in the industry, I think, is a really good sign that there's the business side of the company, of the industry, the volume side of the industry has a very strong momentum.
And Chris, what about you? What do you see going on in the next year here as we come to a close of 2025?
Sure. So, to take it back kind of sort of full circle, I think it's going to be extremely important to see how the certifications progress in light of reports like the Brokers of Shame, how the bar is raised for everybody so that we can have that level playing field and have standards that when we we say to our customers that your information is going to be destroyed, that we're audited by third-party entities, that the paper that we have actually is backed up in real life in the operations that we have in our facilities. So I think that's going to be super important as we go forward. Is how is e-Stewards and R2 going to work to really hold everybody accountable in a way that hasn't happened before. As for Greenchip, we're focused on scaling responsibly and staying ahead of the curve, building the relationships that we have, and growing new ones. So very excited about it. But again, I think we need to learn from what's been happening and really just raise the bar for everybody.
Thank you so much both for joining us today for this very first episode of The Resource. Stay tuned to resource-recycling.com for the latest industry information. You can find this podcast on all of your favorite platforms, including Spotify, Apple, YouTube, and more. Until next time, stay resourceful.